Under current United States law, Clark Kent is a criminal. No, I'm serious. Think about it. He entered the country without a visa. He has no legal status. He uses a completely fabricated identity with a fake social security number to get a job. Every single day, Clark Kent, the mild-mannered reporter, is committing multiple felonies: identity fraud, unauthorized entry, employment violations. The list goes on. He could be detained, deported. But deported where? Krypton is gone. He's stateless. A man without a country, without rights, who by the letter of the law is illegal. I find that absolutely breathtaking. Because that isn't some weird plot hole or inconvenient detail. That is the entire point. This is the secret heart of the character. We think we know Superman, the big blue Boy Scout, the guy who can fly, the symbol of truth, justice, and the American way. Just immigrate to another country and take over their land. But what if I told you that's just the surface? That underneath it all, Superman isn't just a superhero story. He is, and I will argue to my dying day, the single greatest and most enduring metaphor for the immigrant experience in all of modern fiction. He is a living, breathing story that for over 80 years has been a mirror, reflecting America's most beautiful hopes and its deepest, most contradictory anxieties about who belongs in the country. To get it, to really get it, you have to go back to the beginning. Not to Krypton, but to Cleveland, Ohio, in the 1930s. You have to understand his creators, Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster. They weren't corporate guys in a boardroom. They were the children of Eastern European Jewish immigrants. Their families had fled the pogroms, the systemic violence and anti-Semitism of the old world, seeking refuge in the new. They grew up in these precarious low-wage households, seeing their parents work as tailors and domestic servants, seeing injustice firsthand. And they poured all of that hope, that anxiety, that feeling of being an outsider into their creation. It's the source code of the character. Think about the duality. It's not just a secret identity, it's a metaphor for their lives. On the one hand, you have Kal-El, the alien, the survivor from another world, the symbol of your private heritage, the history and the power that you carry within you, but can never fully show to the world. And on the other hand, you have Clark Kent, the mask, the public face of assimilation, meek, bespectacled, quiet, doing everything he can to fit in, to not draw attention, to conform to the dominant culture so he won't be feared or rejected. This is the immigrant experience distilled into a perfect, powerful symbol. The constant negotiation between where you came from and where you are now. The feeling that your true self, your super self, the unique strength you bring from your heritage has to be hidden, lest society see you as an other, as something strange or dangerous. Siegel and Shuster lived this. They felt it, and they gave that feeling a cape. And it's beautiful. And the genius of it all is that they didn't just pull this from their own lives. They tapped into the myths that are thousands of years old, stories that are baked into the very foundation of diaspora history. The most obvious one, of course, is the story of Moses, a doomed homeland, not Egypt, but Krypton, a child sent away by his parents in an ark-like vessel to save him from destruction. He's found and adopted by outsiders, not the Pharaoh's daughter, but Jonathan and Martha Kent. His entire survival hinges on exile and adoption. He grows up to become a moral guide, a leader, a savior for his adopted people. It's the Exodus narrative, given a science fiction gloss. But it goes deeper than that. There's another, even more resonant myth at play here, and that is the Golem of Prague, a creature from Jewish folklore, fashioned from clay given immense superhuman strength for one purpose: to protect the Jewish community from persecution and external threats. And just like Superman, the golem is a protector. He is a savior, but he's also feared. He is misunderstood by the very people he protects. He's seen as a monster, an unnatural other. The parallel gave me chills. It's what happened in the Superman movie. As soon as people find out that he's not one of these nice superheroes that are here to protect them, they immediately turn against him. One guy even tossed a can on his head, on the back of his head. I mean, that's a super-powered being, and you throw a can on the back of his head because you think he's evil. What do you think is going to happen if he's really evil? It is the perfect metaphor for how immigrant contributions are so often viewed. You can bring your strength, your labor, your culture, your unique gifts to the new land. You can literally save the day and still be met with suspicion. You're still the outsider. You're still the golem. You're still the alien from another planet whose true nature must be concealed behind the glasses of Clark Kent. Because the fear of being ostracized, of being deported for failing to perfectly conform is real and ever present. And the details, the details they wove in, whether consciously or unconsciously, are just stunning. His Kryptonian name, Kal-El. In Hebrew, it can be translated as voice of God. He is literally a divine messenger. The S shield, for years, scholars and fans has noted its resemblance to the Hebrew letter Shin. Shin is the letter that appears in, on mezuzahs, the small cases on the doorposts of Jewish homes. It's a symbol of divine protection. So here you have this character, this immigrant, this outsider, wearing a symbol of divine protection on his chest while acting as the voice of a higher moral authority. Are you kidding me? The layers of meaning, the semiotic depth is just staggering. It transforms the costume from a simple logo into a profound statement of identity. Of course, as Superman becomes more and more popular, that identity began to get complicated. It started to get co-opted, and nowhere is this clearer than during World War II. Suddenly, this Jewish immigrant allegory becomes a pivotal piece of American wartime propaganda. He's not just a hero anymore. He's an instrument for national unity. In a famous 1940 issue of Look magazine, there's this incredible two-page spread titled How Superman Would End the War. And it's just him grabbing Hitler by the scuff of his neck, grabbing Stalin, and dragging them before the League of Nations for judgment. It was so potent that Nazi propaganda outlets literally wrote articles attacking Superman and denouncing his creator, Jerry Siegel and Shuster, with disgusting anti-Semitic vitriol. They knew what he represented. He was an ideological counter to their entire worldview. Something that actually mirrors what happened with the release of the 2025 Superman movie today. Back home, he became the ultimate model for assimilation. He was the face of war bond campaigns with slogans like, "You can slap a Jap with war bonds and stamps," which is incredibly jingoistic and racist to our modern ears. But at the time, it carried an implicit message, especially for immigrant communities. This is how you belong. This is how you prove your loyalty. You buy bonds, you support the war effort, you assimilate into the American project, and if you're Japanese, maybe you're going to be the one last person who gets sent to the concentration camp. And who is the ultimate spokesperson for this? The ultimate immigrant. The alien who has successfully integrated and become a national hero. This is when the famous phrase, truth, justice, and the American way really took hold, coming from the radio show. The American way gets bolted onto his identity. It didn't show up from the comics. It was just, a radio show adaptation that put this in. And his alien heritage is now reframed. It's not a liability or something to be hidden anymore. It's a metaphor for every immigrant's journey. His successful assimilation becomes the model for everyone else to follow. But here's the painful contradiction. At the very same time, Superman is being used to promote this inclusive, unified American identity, the comics themselves and the culture at large were filled with the most vile, xenophobic, racist depictions of enemy, particularly the Japanese individuals and, all the concentration camp and everything. And of course, Japanese Americans were being rounded up and forced into internment camps. It creates this staggering paradox where the character who embodies the successful immigrant story is also being used in materials that perpetuate the very racial hatred and fear of the other that he supposedly stands against. It's a tension that has, never really gone away. And this is what makes Superman such an fascinating cultural barometer. You can literally track America's shifting attitudes towards immigration and identity just by watching how his story changes decade after decade. After the war, you get the Silver Age, the 1950s and 60s. Under editor Mort Weisinger, suddenly Krypton is everything. We get these incredibly detailed histories. We meet Supergirl, we meet Krypto, the Superdog. The alien heritage is celebrated. But it's all happening within the context of Cold War era conformity. He may be proud of his Kryptonian roots, but he is, first and foremost, a mild-mannered Midwestern value, Clark Kent. It's the perfect reflection of post-war America, where second and third generation immigrants are navigating this balance between celebrating their ancestral culture, while at the same time integrating into a very conformist mainstream American society. Then the pendulum swings hard the other way. In 1986, John Byrne reboots the character in the Man of Steel miniseries. This was the height of Reagan-era nationalism, the Morning in America ethos. So what does Byrne do? He essentially erases the immigrant story. In his version, the birthing pod carrying Kal-El crashes in Kansas, and it's a birthing pod. So it just not delivering a baby or an already born person. It crashes and he is born on American soil. Therefore, he is now a natural-born American citizen. Birthright citizenship and everything. Something that they are still trying to remove these days. Anyway, his Kryptonian heritage is dismissed as almost irrelevant. The Kents literally tell him to prioritize his American values over his alien legacy. The message is clear. Nativism is ascendant. True strength, true identity comes not from some foreign superior genetics, but from being raised in the American heartland. But you can't keep a good metaphor down. By the year 2000, in a post-9/11 world of globalization and renewed anxieties about borders and belonging, the immigrant theme comes roaring back. Writers like Mark Waid and Jeff Jones reintroduced the Kryptonian symbolism. They redefined the S shield not as a family crest, but as a symbol of hope of his entire race. They lean back into his status as an outsider, as a refugee seeking acceptance. And, this culminates into one of the most politically charged moments in his entire history. The Action Comics number 900 in 2011, where Superman formally renounces his U.S. citizenship. He does it because his actions as a hero are being misinterpreted as instruments of American foreign policy and causing international incidents. He declares that he needs to stand for something bigger than just one nation's borders. He effectively divorces himself from the American way to embrace a more transnational global identity. It was a direct response to the cultural reckoning that America was having with its role in the world, a departure from jingoism towards a more global consciousness. It was mind-blowing. And this brings us a full circle, all the way back to that first idea. Clark Kent, the illegal alien, the man without a country, the man without a planet. What rights does he have? This is the story that transcends comic and touches on some of the most profound philosophical questions of the last century. The political theorist Hannah Arendt, herself a refugee from Nazi Germany, wrote about the terror of statelessness. She coined the phrase "the right to have rights." The idea that you can have freedom of speech or any other right, you must first have the fundamental right to belong to a political community that will recognize and protect you. Without that, you're an abstraction. Your humanity is forfeit. And that is Clark Kent. That's Superman if his identity is ever revealed. He loses everything because he belongs nowhere. And this is the moral contradiction at the heart of the story. Superman's daily deeds of saving people, fighting for justice, are the absolute epitome of civic contribution. He embodies the same values of service and self-sacrifice that any nation would want in its citizen. And yet, legally, he's a criminal. This is the story of millions of undocumented immigrants in the real world who contribute to their communities, who run businesses, who pay billions of dollars in taxes every year, who raises families, who are in every functional sense our neighbors, but who live under the constant threat of being erased because of a legal status. Superman's story forces us to ask, what matters more? The Euro status, the piece of paper that says you belong, or the de facto reality of your contributions, your character, your service to the common good? He is not a con man. He is a community member who holds himself to a moral code more stringent than any law. He uses his gifts to defend others. He embodies the very definition of good citizenship. And that is the power of his character. That is the genius of what Siegel and Shuster created all those years ago. They gave us more than just a hero who could fly. They gave us a cultural palimpsest, a story onto which America has projected its hopes, its fears, its ideals, and its hypocrisies about immigration for nearly a century. He is the ultimate insider and the ultimate outsider, a refugee, an assimilator, a nationalist, a transnationalist. He is a symbol of our capacity for welcome and our fear of the unknown. He's not just the man of steel, he's also the man of tomorrow, constantly forcing us to ask ourselves, what kind of America do we want to build today? So what do you guys think? Does this immigrant reading of Superman resonate with you? What's the version of the character or the specific story that you just perfectly captures this idea for you? I need to know. Seriously, drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to read every single one. And hey, if you're here for deep dives that celebrate the absolute best in storytelling, do all the good YouTube things. Hit that like button, spread the love, subscribe if you want to join this community, and ring that bell so you don't miss our next celebration. You guys are the best. See you next time.